Feldway had not anticipated Rimuru's return, and seeing him safe gave him a sense of unease, as if something terrible was imminent. However, before he could act, Diablo stood in his way, preventing any interference. As their battle raged on, Rimuru discreetly tossed something to Diablo, triggering Feldway's instincts. He tried to intercept, but Rimuru had already teleported it away. Recognizing teleportation's tactical advantage, Feldway lamented his own inexperience with the skill, despite possessing it. His cautious nature, once a strength, now left him vulnerable. Still, he saw an opportunity. Diablo was near defeat, and Rimuru had taken a direct hit from Milim's Drago Nova. Assuming Rimuru was merely feigning strength, Feldway planned to finish Diablo before turning on Rimuru. But his assumption was a grave mistake. The battle took a drastic turn as Diablo, once on the brink of defeat, was fully restored by Rimuru's recovery potion. Feldway launched a desperate, full-power assault, only to be effortlessly blocked. To his horror, Diablo was not just surviving, he was growing stronger. His fighting style shifted from evasive to a direct contest of strength, defying logic. Then came the revelation that shook Feldway to his core. Diablo had mastered the Void, a force of ultimate destruction. Even Tensura had struggled to control it, yet Diablo wielded it effortlessly. Normally, such power required opening an unstable portal to the abyss, but Diablo had internalized it, making it his own. His survival was made possible by Rimuru's omnipotent cells, which regenerated faster than the Void's destructive force. Though Diablo saw this as proof of Rimuru's brilliance, it was merely an unintended consequence of healing his wounds. With limitless energy and regeneration, Diablo shattered the conventional rules of battle. Attrition no longer applied. Any damage he sustained was instantly erased. Even Feldway's Genesis-class techniques were rendered meaningless. Realizing that Diablo had surpassed him in combat ability, Feldway saw his inevitable defeat looming. Desperate, Feldway turned to his last remaining ally, cursing Viga's failure in Rimurus Labyrinth. His frustration deepened when Diablo dismissed Viga as insignificant, revealing how easily he had been dealt with. Feldway had relied on Viga's greed and adaptability, believing him indispensable, yet now he was gone. With Zelario's betrayal and Fen's defeat, only Jahal remained. But before he could summon Jahal for support, Yuuki casually appeared, revealing that he had already taken care of Jahal. Feldway, losing what little composure he had left, lashed out at Yuuki in anger, only for his attack to be effortlessly dodged. Yuuki taunted him further, openly admitting that while he couldn't defeat Feldway in direct combat, he could certainly evade him indefinitely using teleport. With a smirk, Yuuki acknowledged Rimuru's dangerous subordinates and quickly withdrew, leaving the fight in Diablo's hands. While Yuuki had never expected to win, he had simply wanted to get back at Feldway, and after landing that symbolic blow, he was satisfied. Watching from the sidelines, Yuuki came to a grim realization. There was no defeating Rimuru. If even his subordinates were this powerful, challenging him was beyond impossible. Inside Yuuki's mind, Maria echoed the same sentiment, warning him that any attempt to oppose Rimuru would end in destruction. Yuuki silently agreed, feeling thoroughly exhausted by the situation. As he left, Diablo's onslaught intensified. Feldway's attacks, which had once torn through opponents with ease, were now effortlessly deflected. The difference in power had become painfully clear, yet what was truly terrifying was Diablo's complete disregard for that difference. Even Zelario, whose existence value exceeded 20 million, acknowledged that he had no hope of defeating the current Diablo. There was no frustration or resentment in his observation, only a resigned acceptance of the overwhelming gap in strength. As the battle neared its conclusion, Feldway, the once proud mastermind behind the plan to reshape the world, found himself cornered and outmatched, staring into the abyss of defeat. With Feldway overwhelmed and on the verge of defeat, even Leon could only nod gravely, sharing the same disbelief as the others. The sight of an opponent who had once dominated them now being completely outmatched by Diablo was too shocking to ignore, and expecting anyone not to be dumbfounded would have been unreasonable. Finally, the decisive moment arrived. With an all-encompassing strike imbued with his entire power and spirit, Diablo unleashed End of World Requiem, bringing Feldway crashing to the ground, seemingly defeated. Diablo had achieved victory without Rimuru needing to intervene, an astonishing feat that even Rimuru hadn't fully anticipated. Feldway had been an immense threat, and had the situation escalated further, Rimuru had considered enlisting Milim's help to ensure victory. Yet Diablo had handled it alone, proving himself far stronger than expected. However, as Rimuru assessed him, he noticed that Diablo was in an even worse state than before. Though he stood tall, his energy was nearly depleted, and his face was eerily lifeless, as if he were already on the brink of death. His gratitude for Rimuru's praise remained unwavering, but his current condition was deeply concerning. Just as Rimuru was about to suggest that Diablo rest, something completely unexpected occurred. Feldway, who had been reduced to dust, began regenerating. Diablo, despite his drained state, remained prepared to fight again, clearly irritated by Feldway's persistence. But before he could make another move, Rimuru intervened, sensing something strange. Feldway, muttering under his breath, was speaking in fragmented, almost delirious sentences. He spoke of stopping the world, of making someone regret abandoning him, of a reunion he had longed for but had been denied. His hollow eyes, filled with sorrow and despair, sent chills down Rimuru's spine. For a moment, hesitation crept in. Defeating Feldway was the logical course of action. But something about this moment felt as if it would leave an irreversible regret. That moment of hesitation was his mistake. Before anyone could react, Feldway looked up at the sky and vanished, escaping with teleportation before anyone could stop him. Immediately, the blame fell on Rimuru. Though he protested that Feldway's escape wasn't entirely his fault, the others saw it differently. No one had expected Feldway, who had been so prideful, to run away. Overconfident in their ability to track him, Rimuru had underestimated the complexity of teleportation, which left no spatial distortions and made it virtually impossible to trace. However, Ciel quickly corrected this assumption, explaining that by monitoring magicules across the world, they could pinpoint Feldway's reappearance. Only, he had not resurfaced anywhere on the surface, meaning he had likely fled to another world. With that knowledge, they simply had to wait for him to return. Seizing the opportunity, Rimuru downplayed Feldway's escape, framing it as a minor inconvenience rather than a disaster. Shifting the conversation toward immediate priorities, he convinced the others to focus on the tasks at hand, successfully avoiding further blame. Diablo, despite being barely able to stand, chimed in to support Rimuru, further reinforcing his claim that the battle's outcome was still in their favor. Though he admitted he no longer had the energy to fight, he expressed his unwavering devotion to serving Rimuru, pushing his loyalty to exaggerated extremes. Sensing that the conversation was veering into unnecessary dramatics, Rimuru swiftly moved things along. He reorganized their forces. He would head to former Eurazania, while Milim and Veldora prepared for the battle against Ivarage and Dalmargania. Chloe, despite insisting on accompanying him, was assigned to assist Milim, as her ability to see the future would be invaluable against the world-destroying dragon. Leon, Zelario, and Sylvia, despite their exhaustion, also chose to accompany Milim. Meanwhile, Olmesia focused on summoning the forces that could still fight, with Yuuki handling their transport via teleportation. Though he feigned reluctance, Yuuki understood the stakes and agreed, knowing full well that there was no room for failure. As plans solidified, Kagali cautiously approached Rimuru with a serious question, whether he was confident in their victory. While the honest answer was no, Rimuru refused to consider the possibility of failure. He reasoned that since they were already in the worst-case scenario, there was no point in dwelling on defeat. The only option was to fight with everything they had and secure victory. Yuuki, in his usual carefree manner, acknowledged this, sharing a similar sentiment. They had to win, no matter what, to reclaim what they had lost. With that, preparations were complete, and they were ready to move. Before they departed, Rimuru proposed a solution to another lingering issue, giving Yuuki and his group control over the puppet country, Gista. With no place to return to, Yuuki and Kagali had been left without a home, and Gista, currently under Milim's management, was proving difficult for Rimuru to govern, since the area had no real economic ties to the rest of Milim's territory. Transferring control to Yuuki and his followers would be mutually beneficial. Milim, after some playful bickering, agreed to the idea, making it official. Yuuki, still wary, confirmed if it was truly okay, while Kagali cautiously held on to hope. Though Rimuru assured them it wasn't his decision alone. With Milim's approval, the matter was settled. With one last warning to Yuuki about maintaining their new partnership, Rimuru ensured that any future cooperation would be done on his terms. Though Yuuki agreed, Rimuru remained skeptical, knowing that dealing with him would require constant vigilance. With final preparations complete, Yuuki activated teleportation, sending the forces to their destinations. As the room cleared, Rimuru found himself momentarily alone, until he noticed Diablo still standing calmly beside him. Startled, he questioned why Diablo hadn't left with the others, to which Diablo casually reminded him that, as Rimuru's butler, he was always by his side. While Rimuru found his overzealous loyalty a bit suffocating, He recognized that sending Diablo elsewhere in his weakened state would be a bad idea. Accepting his presence, Rimuru refocused, preparing for the next battle. With teleportation, he and Diablo vanished, heading for former Eurazania where another major challenge awaited.